This is the Self-Aware Leader Podcast. Now your host, Jason Rigby.
We are going to talk about chaos today, specifically controlling the chaos within and without. And what does that look like when we look at leadership? Well, as you guys know, I call it the art of leadership, and I think it's an art. It's something that you have to practice and study and really put emphasis in. A lot of us have done well, maybe in sales, or we did well in a certain structure, and then through those accomplishments of us single-handedly doing something, we were rewarded and put into a leadership position. But a position is different than being an actual leader. The art of leadership is you, like a martial art. It's you practicing day in and day out, being self-aware enough that you know that you're practicing. When's the last time you've took the time to study chaos? When's the last time you were self-aware enough to look at the chaos that's inside of you and how internally that's transmuting externally to those that you serve? And so I'm going to use Napoleon had a great, he's probably top military leader that we can think of. We can have an argument over who's history's greatest military leader. But as far as if you ask somebody, hey, name a military history leader, a lot of people will pick Napoleon and say his name. He said this: the battlefield is a scene of constant chaos. The winner will be the one who controls that chaos, both his own and his enemies. And I know we're not literally on a battlefield. And you may say, Jason, well, maybe in war, this is really important. I think this sentiment holds profound implications for modern leaders, especially now with so much external chaos going around. How do you create a culture of peace? How do you create a culture of stability? How do you create a culture of trust when no one trusts their leaders nowadays, especially a young person? You take an 18, 19, 20-year-old and ask them to trust in leadership. What does their leaders look like? Name a great leader that they could look to and say, this person has been very influential. This political person, this corporate leader. You have to understand and put yourself in that 20-year-old shoes and see what type of leadership has been modeled to them. Now you've got social media. Here's how we externally act. Here's what's cool. And here's the influence that I'm getting on social media. And here's the older mentors that I have that are not showing any type of leadership at all. Name me a great political person on either side that's a great leader. They can talk well, but I'm talking leadership. And we saw this over and over and over again. And it amazes me when chaos hits, how many people can't handle it. They don't know what to do. And so first I want to talk about the chaos within. Personal mastery. Before you can be a leader and handle external chaos, you've got to have that turmoil within has to be solved. This inner chaos can take various forms. This is how you know if you have chaos inside your life right now. You have self-doubt. You have impulsiveness. You have unresolved past traumas. And a myopia of ego that, displays itself in so many peacock feather ways. And so I want to go through these just really quick. Self-doubt. What does that look like? I don't know where I'm at. I have no clarity. I feel like my talents and abilities aren't where they're at. I have imposter syndrome. So I don't know if I could really make this decision correctly. And I'm hoping I get lucky or I can just wing it. So if you're winging things or playing it safe, you need to be self-aware enough to ask, do I have self-doubt? Playing it safe a lot of times is self-doubt. But playing it safe will keep you and your team frustrated. There's no vision. There's no inspiration. So you may keep employees there that want to play it safe, but there's no backbone. There's no, let's die by the sword. Here we go. Let's go out into battle. Let's conquer this. And if you're fine living that fearful life and having no mission or purpose or vision, then go right ahead. But self-doubt a lot of times is going to keep you playing it safe. And I'm not saying be risky, and this leads into my next one, which is the dichotomy of that, and that's impulsiveness. You're impulsive, you're emotionally driven. As a leader, you're constantly not willing to accept the reality that your emotions, majority of time, your impulsiveness is going to be wrong. And that you need to detach from that emotion so that you can logically look at the big picture and then make a decision. If you're running around just making decisions based off of your emotions, I don't like this, I like this, I don't, and just judging everything and how you feel, who made you God? And how do you really know? That's what I'm saying. You can't make a judgment off of how you feel because you have no idea and no information. You're basing it off of a gut feeling, and they've already scientifically proven that a lot of those are wrong. So that's self-doubt, impulsiveness, unresolved past traumas. You have to work on those as a leader because you don't know the decision that you make could be based off of some trauma that you had. And you don't want to face that trauma, so you make that decision. This repetitive pattern over and over and over again is made because you don't want to handle this trauma. Let me give you an example. I know somebody who's had very abusive parents, both sides. So they're very passive aggressive when it comes to them being a leader, and they're in a leadership position. So when somebody gets kind of real alpha with them or real strong, it triggers them, and so they turn into sorry, apologetic, victim mode. And they can't handle the process of confrontation. They don't know how to do it. And so what happens a lot of times is if you don't understand confrontation and you don't know how to do it well, then you're going to either get emotional and shut the whole thing down and tell that person to go away, or you're going to turn around, and this is the even worse part, is you're going to fly off the handle and try to get more angry and up them, and then you're going to hurt somebody deeply. And all you're doing is hurt people. Your trauma is triggering you and causing more hurt. So the hurt that happened inside of you is you're transmuting that hurt to other people, which is horrific. And then ego, and I'm not going to get into this. I've done a ton of podcasts. Ego will destroy you as a leader. It's there. It's good if it's in it, if it knows its place. My ego is like the bratty little kid, and so I know it's that. So I'm going to not treat it as the real me and understand when it's there, and I'll listen to it. But as a parent, my higher self is going to listen to my ego. But it's submissive to my higher self. Let's look at introspection, because I think this is really important. Introspection is regular self-reflection. It's taking moments of solitude. It's getting away from the hustle and bustle of daily life so that you can understand deeply your motives, your reactions, and your emotions. That is introspection. That needs to be done at least on a daily basis. This is where meditation comes in hand, journaling comes in hand. Find a way where you can look at the situations. Sometimes I'll just get a paper and write down the problem and then write down solutions to it. And then I get my team together and then we go over it. And I want them to do this process too of introspection. This is really good for coaching and teamwork. You can do this in your coaching. If you're doing this on a regular basis, it's really easy for you to pull one of your leaders in or pull a teammate in and have them do this with the situation or problem that they're facing. Next is emotional intelligence. Develop the ability to recognize and manage your own emotions. We already talked about this a little bit. And understanding the emotions of others. How unconscious is a person? I'll look at some of it. This person's kind of unconscious, and these are their triggers. And people will tell you, if you're doing coaching, they'll tell you what their triggers are. Then you can understand their chaos, their personal chaos. And if you, as a leader, understand their chaos and understand their triggers, and you have honesty, you could be like, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. And I apologize. I know this triggers you. And the way that I approached this was probably a trigger to you. And so I just wanted to come to you, as your boss and let you know I'm sorry and I shouldn't have done that. You will build such deep relationships that people will stay with you forever because you're building a great relationship, as it would be with a partner, with a wife, with a husband, whatever it is, whatever type of relationship that's out there. You're going to build it by being able to be the leader who recognizes the chaos and helps in a loving and peaceful way show clarity in that chaos. And we're going to get into that. And then next is seek feedback. Encourage a culture where feedback is welcomed. Not only is it welcomed, but it's valued. When somebody gives you feedback and you get triggered by it as a leader because it's a subordinate giving you some feedback, you need to know here we go, introspection. Why am I getting triggered by this feedback? Emotional intelligence. Why am I getting emotional by this? Why do I want to yell at this person because they're giving me feedback? It's valued. You need to say thank you. Every time somebody gives you feedback, you better be grateful and say thank you, because that is them in the two-way relationship. Most relationships are one way. It's the boss telling the person what to do. They don't care or have any genuine information. That's a cog in the wheel of that person. Especially, when you look at on the sales side of things, like salespeople, what they're regarded as. I just watched an Instagram post where this CEO of this tech company was firing these people using like a succession line as like a joke, and it was salespeople. I'm telling you guys, if you encourage and value feedback, you're going to create such an amazing culture. Because when your colleagues and subordinates, they start observing patterns and behaviors of what other leaders miss, but they see you modeling those, and then they turn around. It takes a while for this to develop. Then they turn around and begin to model those. And then these patterns and behaviors, they're noticing, you're noticing, you guys are communicating in a loving way on it. This is the golden ticket to personal growth, isn't it? You want to have an unstoppable team? Have this valued and welcome feedback. Next, we talked about the chaos within. Let's talk about the chaos without. How do you lead through turbulence? Well, I think, number one, you need to look at it as you're the captain of the ship in the stormy sea. And so if we're going to take that, and I want us to envision that, there's a stormy sea. The sea is not as bad where you're going to die, but it's chaotic. And here's the problem, and we need to face it, and you're the captain. Number one, we need to seek vision and clarity. Amidst confusion, a clear vision will always act. Here we go, another sea reference. Act as a lighthouse. You have to over-communicate this vision. It's like you need every single employee, when there's an opportunity, communicate vision. If you're at the water fountain and they're like, hey, boss, how's it going? Oh, good. Just, what are you working on? Well, I'm doing this and this. Vision. How's it going today, Susan? Oh, good. Oh, great. I'm glad you're working on the vision for this. Maybe we could have a meeting a little bit later and we could see how that puzzle piece fits into the vision. When there's chaos, you've got to have vision, because what happens when you have vision and you get everybody in a chaotic, they get focused. They're not focused on the sea, they're focused on the vision. You got to get them away from being focused on the problem and get them focused on the vision. And the vision, once everybody gets that synergy of getting focused on the vision, it brings stability and clarity even in a storm. If every sailor knows exactly what they're to do, and they're a veteran in handling storms, the captain of the ship can look around and watch each sailor doing their job fully. They're not focused on the C. They're focused on doing their job the best that they can so they can survive. It gives your team a purpose and direction. So vision clarity, number one. Number two is agility. If things are changing and it's chaotic and the landscape is crazy, rigidity is going to be your downfall. I see this over and 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 over again. People try to do things before they did the internet. That marketing principle, leadership principle may work in 1932, but it's not working in 2023. You have to, now there are timeless principles, yes, and I read a ton of books from the early 1900s, and I love those. Discipline and all those things. Success, all of that. I'm a fan of all of it. But you have to look at certain things and say, are we being rigid about this? Are we adapting? This is the problem I have with a lot of religion. And I'm going to offend some of you. And I'm not an atheist or none of those things. I have a spiritual podcast that I do called Higher Density Living. Encourage you to check it out. You can, it's Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Just type in Higher Density Living. But the problem I have with religion is they become so rigid in these archaic ideas that they're not willing to adapt and change. And that's what evolving and evolution of personal growth is. Your beliefs should change. You're like, that sounds horrible, Jason. I don't like that. But think about it. You do this in relationships. You have a belief about something, and maybe your child comes to you, your partner comes to you, somebody comes to you, and they're like, hey, here's a different perspective. And you're like, it kind of makes me angry, but I see your point. And then a day or two later, you come back to them, and they're like, you know what? You're right. And you change your belief on a lot of things. So why do we feel like we have to stick with something that's from the 1600s? I never understood that. Things evolve and adapt. Adaptability is one of the greatest tools you have as a leader. It allows you to pivot. It allows you to move. You see this in sports. Find a coach that's like, since the 1930s, we've done it this way, and this is the only way that we do it. Since the 1600s, we've played football this way, and this is the only way we play football, and we will never adapt. This is our belief structure. We're fundamentalist in this way. No, the great part about sports is seeing the adaptability. That's what gets us excited. Different strategies, different systems. You have to pivot. Because when you can pivot and you're super adaptive, then you begin to control the chaos. See, you can even get to the point to where you can get ahead of the chaos. That's magical. And when you'll see it, you'll know that. And you may have had, as a leader, you may have had times where you've been a little bit ahead of the chaos, and it feels amazing. Next is empowerment. This is the last one, guys. Trust your team. Equip them with the tools, knowledge, and autonomy they need to make decisions. You don't make decisions. Allow your team to make the decisions. That's what empowering is all about. If you equip them with tools, knowledge, and autonomy, you're coaching them. The coach is never out there being the wide receiver, being the quarterback, getting the touchdowns, passing the ball. Why are you doing that? Business owner, leader. Why are you doing all the plays? And then you wonder why you're tired and you don't have time. You're not leading. You're doing work for other people. And they're going to do a better job than you, believe it or not. If they're not, then you're a bad leader. And all you're doing is getting frustrated, angry, upset, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and then snapping people's heads off. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. I see it over and over and over again, especially in small businesses. When there's a team of like 5 or 6 people, they're the expert, and they've gotten so used to running it, and they're like, this is my business, and you guys are visitors. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it, and this is the way I want it. And you'll never be as dedicated and loyal as I am. Of course not. They're getting paid. They don't have the passion you do. You'll never get an employee to have the passion you do. It's unrealistic. They're an employee. If they start their own business, then they're going to be passionate about their business. If you get that and understand it, then you won't get offended so many times. An empowered team is more resilient, adaptive, and they are capable as a team of navigating chaotic situations. You have to let people make decisions. even if it's not the best decision. If it's a good or better decision, let them make the decision. You coach them, ask them questions, don't tell them what to do, and they can pivot after they've made a good decision, and you can coach them to make a better or best decision by making slow changes with them and allowing them to catch it. That's a great leader with coaching. Say, Jim, I know you made this decision on this marketing program, and this is the direction we're going to go, and you've got these 2 vendors set up. I love it. I kind of want to know, like, if we took this to the next level, like this is 1.0 and we took it to 2.0, what would that look like? What are you thinking? A lot of times they will say what I was thinking, or they will say, get kind of close. And so then I need to do, okay, well, I got to pull Jim in and do a 4.0. So here's what it looks like at 2.0. Oh, perfect. Well, can you kind of give me a timeline on 2.0, what that would look like, how we can get it there? I know we're implementing 1.0. Let's get that down, make sure everything's good, and then let's work on getting a 2.0. Now, 6 months later, I bring him into the office because I have a file on everybody, and I write everything down, the notes. I also have voice files that I keep that I use on my phone, and then I can go back and listen to what I said about the coaching session. So I go back, I listen, it's like, oh, the 2.0 thing. Well, what's 3.0? So I bring Jim back in the office. Hey, Jim, this has been amazing. You've done a great job. See how I'm doing this? Because he's done a great job. We've implemented 2.0. It's awesome. If you had to cast vision and really go out there, and this was like a 10 out of a 1 to 10, this is the best that you see your team can do, what does that look like for the next year? And I don't want you to tell me now. Next week, we're going to have lunch together, and I want you to go over that, and I want you to share your vision with me, because I'm getting pumped from what I saw already with 2.0, and I just want to take you to dinner. I'm so appreciative of all that you've done. I'll take you to lunch, whatever it is, and I want you to share that with me. If you want to make a PowerPoint and just throw it on the laptop or your iPad and show it to me, that's awesome too. If you don't want to and you want to have a little outline and we can write it on a napkin with the Sharpie, I'm all in. I just want to hear your passion and vision of what it looks like for the next year. Now you took somebody from you not having to make decision. You're teaching them. They're molding it. The team is owning it. That leader's owning it. You took from 1.0 to 2.0. And I guarantee you, when you have that lunch where you show appreciation and gratitude to him, he's going to come in with the 3.0 that's badass. And you're going to love it. An empowered team is more resilient, adaptive, and capable. You want to have an empowered team, because when chaos hits, it's going to pay off 100-fold. Because 99.9, and I'm saying this, 99.9% of leaders lead bad. And if they're leading bad, guess what happens? They're not going to be able to handle a situation in chaos. Open channels of communication. Ensure that lines of communication are always open. When information flows seamlessly, the chances of misunderstanding and missteps, often the harbingers of chaos. You have to look at, like, me being the boss and filters going through me, am I filtering down the data being able to flow? Or think of it as like water. So it has to go through this little tiny hose, which is me, and then it can get back into the big hose. You don't want that. Worse would be a dam. We've got to wait, and then he regulates how much water gets streamed in and out, or we're waiting on. That's the ridiculous part, is the waiting on. For you to give what? Your personal bias? What if your team does something way better? A lot of times your team won't do creative work because they know they get to read that you're going to have to approve it, and it's going to go off your bias, not theirs. So they don't put their heart and soul into it. Do you get that? If you're having to approve everything, and it's going to come off of your style or the way that you want it, they're not going to put their heart and soul into it. They're not going to be creative on it. You're not going to get something amazing. You're going to get something that you want, that you think is amazing. But that's so egotistical to think that what you want and what is amazing to you is what everybody wants in the world. Especially when it comes to like marketing and these different things. In sales and marketing, back office, when you're dealing with just numbers, right? But there are creative, not ways in getting the numbers. There are creative things that you can do, new positions that you can hire for, maybe positions that you can eliminate that are redundant by allowing them to be creative. So are you stopping information from flowing seamlessly? But I want to close on this. The essence of leadership isn't about avoiding chaos. That's what the problem with leadership in this country is, and in a majority of countries. Everyone wants to create rules and regulations to avoid chaos. Instead, you should be wanting to master it. The journey begins with personal self-awareness and culminates in the ability to navigate the rough waters, navigate those external challenges effectively. And as leaders, if you will embrace the wisdom of Napoleon and learn not just to survive amidst chaos, but I'm telling you, with these principles, you can thrive.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Aware Leader Podcast with host Jason Rigby. We hope this episode has inspired you to unleash your full potential and embrace your inner leadership. By expanding your consciousness, you can transform your mind, body, and soul and become the remarkable leader you were always meant to be. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your loved ones and help us expand our community. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again on the Self-Aware Leader Podcast.